All right, so do you guys want to talk about a controversial subject? Do you want to hear about something that I've totally changed my perspective on when it comes to homeschooling? Stay tuned for today's video because we're talking about how many hours should I homeschool per day and what exactly counts as homeschooling. Hi, welcome to Born for Homeschool. I'm Rachel Bourne. Here at Born for Homeschool, I want to let you know that I am not here to tell you that there is a certain way that is the best way to homeschool, or there is a certain way that is the only way to homeschool, or there's a certain way that is the right way to homeschool. I am simply here to give you information and resources, to share things that I've learned along the way, and hopefully to be an encouragement to you as you homeschool. So today we're talking about the questions, how much time should it take to homeschool each day? And what exactly counts as homeschool? And these questions are very interwoven. And so we're gonna discuss both of those in today's video. So let's talk about the first question, how much time should it take to homeschool each day? So in the very first video of this mini-series, I did a video which talked about how to start homeschooling. And the very first thing we talked about was the importance of knowing your local homeschool laws. And once again, this comes up here as we talk about how much time it will take to homeschool, because there are some states here in the United States where it's actually dictated in the homeschool laws how much time you need to be spending homeschooling. So definitely the first thing is to be sure to know what the local laws are for where you live. Now, the second thing I think that helps to determine how much time you will spend homeschooling is your child or your children, the ages and stages of life and levels they're at. Homeschooling a kindergartner usually takes a vastly different amount of time than homeschooling a high schooler. So that will be the second factor in determining how many hours you'll be homeschooling a day. So the third thing that helps determine how much time you'll be spending homeschooling is your homeschool philosophy. And I just did a video where we talked about homeschooling curriculum and how homeschool philosophy really plays a huge part in choosing your homeschool curriculum. And so I will share a link in the description box below of that video if you're interested in checking out the video on your curriculum, which walks you through homeschool philosophies, because depending on how you approach homeschooling and your philosophy for homeschooling, it will really determine a lot as far as the time you spend homeschooling each day. And that brings me to the fourth factor in determining how much time you'll spend homeschooling each day, and that is what counts as homeschooling to you, what you believe about homeschooling. So we're going to shift from talking about how many hours a day it takes to homeschool to now talking about what counts as homeschooling. So I want to share a little bit about how my perspective on what counts as homeschool has changed in the last few years that we've been homeschooling. When I first started homeschooling my daughter, I counted homeschool, her education, I counted that as the times that we were sitting at the table. I was teaching her the lesson and she was going through the workbook or completing the lesson pages, and we would occasionally go on a field trip. And those are the times, those are the things that I counted as her education. Those are the things I counted as schooling for her. And I really began to start to see things a little differently when at the end of the school year, I was compiling her portfolio. So I was sitting there and I was going through this ginormous stack of math papers. And these papers represented hours that we'd spent working through math that year. And these hours that she had learned, and we had gone through the lesson, and it had taken about 40 minutes per day for us to go through her lesson. I would teach the lesson, we would do the math meeting part, and then we would do the front part of the page. And then because I didn't really set aside a time for homework later in the day, we actually did the back part of the page also. So we did front and back of the page, we did the math meeting and the lesson all together, and it took about 45 minutes or so a day. So I'm sorting through these papers and I'm pulling out her assessments, and I'm left with this ginormous stack of math papers that she had done throughout the year. And again, this is symbolizing hours and hours and hours of time. And I'm realizing, wow, this curriculum has been a tool that we have used over the last year for her to gain the knowledge and the skills that she has today. And I began to think, okay, so this has been the tool that we used for the last year, and she's gained the knowledge and skills to, move on and build on the knowledge and skills that she gained. But this curriculum was just the tool. And I began to realize there were lots of other tools to use that could help give her those skills and the knowledge that she had gained. And it didn't just have to look like sitting down and working through a workbook or sitting down and working through a curriculum. So I want to discuss two words, and both of these words have to do with the gaining of knowledge and skills. And the first word is education, and the second word is learning. The definition of education is the process of receiving or giving systematic instruction, especially at a school or university. And the definition of learning is the activity or process of gaining knowledge or skill by studying, practicing, being taught, or experiencing something. So it really seemed to me that education was really talking about the process of systematically working through a curricula. And learning was dealing more with practicing and studying and being taught and experiencing the world or the subject in order to learn and to develop knowledge and skills. And so I really began to think that my view of homeschooling was definitely more towards giving my child a strong foundation, a strong education to prepare her for the rest of her life. And I have really shifted my view on what schooling looks like, on what learning looks like. And now my goal is not just to give my child an education, but I really want to help her to learn and help her to experience and to practice and to gain knowledge and skills in a more interactive way. So what counts for a school these days in our family looks very different from what I counted as school for our family a few years ago. So some of the things that we count these days for school are things like read-alouds and books, field trips, games, lots of extracurricular activities. We have clubs and Sunday school, children's church, co-op, vacation Bible school, sports. I also count baking. We count outdoor hikes and outdoor play. I'm a huge proponent on the importance of outdoor play. And so that is really important in our family's homeschool, is to be spending time outdoors. We also count things like community service, travel, videos and documentaries that we watch. We count things like live music and theater performances, art projects, even if they're not assigned art projects, reading projects, even if they're not assigned reading projects. These are all ways that our children are learning and practicing these skills and experiencing the world that helps them to learn and to build the knowledge and the skills they need to continue to learn. And other things we count for school are music lessons. So I would love to know, what are some of the things that you count for school? What are some ways that your children love learning? So as you think about your homeschool and how much time you should be homeschooling a day and what is going to count as your homeschool this year, I encourage you to think outside of the curriculum box and to think of the ways that your child is learning and experiencing and gaining knowledge and skills that looks different from just sitting at a desk and filling in the answers. I would love to hear about the fun things that you have planned, the things that you're excited about, the out-of-the-box things that you count as school. Please leave me a comment below. I love to hear about other people's homeschool and how they're doing it. Thank you so much for joining me today. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe to Born for Homeschool for weekly videos on tips and tricks, information, and encouragement to simply support your homeschool. I will see you again in the next video.